Yo, what up, family? All right, so finally getting to putting the car on the ground. I showed you in a previous video me doing the rear, and obviously before going to the shop, I pulled them back out, put it back to stock. That way that the shop wouldn't have any issues getting under, doing whatever all they needed to do. But now it's time to put it back on the ground, right? Upper control arms, cross-drill slotted rotors, at least for the front, LS400 calipers, RCAs, and the coilovers for the front. It is important to note that the RCAs will lower your car. So when you're adjusting your coilovers, you want to adjust your coilovers to match the OEM shock or strut and spring setup, depending on how large your RCAs are, because you can get them in different what 30 millimeter, 20 millimeter, so on and so forth, right? So just be mindful, but let's go. I know. I did not record the removal, but let me walk you through where I'm at and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So as I mentioned, the RCAs is going to lower the car, all right? So let's say, considering this is a budget build, right? Let's say you wanted to just replace the caliper and rotor, right? And your budget, you didn't have it in your budget to do upper control arms or coilovers. You could simply just use the RCAs to lower the car. I've done it in the past while I was getting my money together, right? Now, for the back, you can use just regular drop springs, you know what I mean? But if you have coilovers, what you want to do is adjust your coilovers to the length, the same length as the factory strut. This is just a little bit, lower. So I'm thinking I might just leave it, just because we're low lives, right? And when you're working on a car, you want to coordinate as many things as possible. You want to get the gloves, you want to get your tools to match all your parts, all right? And you want to do that because JDM. So the RCAs slide over these dowels, and you want to make sure that it's sitting flush. Your coilovers, you want to adjust it to where the spring portion isn't moving around. And then you want to put your locking ring in. Measure twice, right? Make sure I'm not too far off. And actually, they're almost dead even. I want it to be a little bit lower, so I'm gonna come back a little bit. Yep, just a little bit. All right, here we go. Oh, ha, almost got me. So, upper control arm. You can't take the upper control arm until you take your shock out. Shock and strut, right? So, let's work on that now. I want to say that is a 14. Yep. Now, once you put this in, the upper control arm, you wanna take the car to get in alignment. You don't want to drive around with it without an alignment. And I didn't talk about this. So you see I have this suspended. The reason I have it suspended, you might be saying to yourself, oh, you got that suspended, but you have the caliper just hanging. Yeah, you want to suspend your caliper as well, as to not put undue stress and strain on your brake line. But I have this suspended because of the ABS sensor. I have done this in the past and damaged an ABS sensor, and it's not cheap. Well, it might be cheap now, I don't know, but I don't want to find out. So we didn't have any ABS lights on before we started this project. I don't want any now. Your upper control arms have R's and L's etched in them, all right? Obviously, L is not for Lexus, it's for left, and R is for right. This is the right-hand side of the car, so we'll be putting these in. And again, I'm going to adjust it to mirror the factory. Again, I know we're going to go get an alignment afterwards, so it's not the end of the world. All right. One thing I noticed. So at the tops, you see that extra, if you look at both sides, there's one side that protrudes further than the other, and it's the same on the other side. In order to get it in, what works for me is this part points towards the passenger compartment. So away from the engine, back towards the back of the car. Got it? All right, so what I was doing, I used a long extension, slid it through, pried up on the sway bar, which pushed the bottom of the strut down, and just run the bolt through. All right, now I'm going to come up top and man, this needs to be clean in here. We have nice detail when it's all said and done. All right, now as I was telling you, run the dials up into the RCA. Make sure it's flush. So then the dowels on top of here are gonna go in here. That'll sit flush. And voila, put everything back together. Let's go. Your RCAs are gonna come with longer bolts, or should come with longer bolts, because obviously the bolts that came out of the bottom's not going to be able to help you now. So only drawback, every set of RCAs that I've seen comes with Allen head bolts. Sometimes it's a little bit frustrating swapping back and forth, right? But you can get your own bolts if you'd like. Some say RCAs add additional strength to the front suspension. So I've had a mishap before with one of my cars. So what I'll tell you is just pay attention to the sounds that your suspension makes. It should not make any creaking or popping sounds. And if it does, something is wrong. Investigate. If I have pictures of that, I'll insert it. But it's fairly common. It's fairly common to see it on the forums. So be mindful of that. All right, so got the upper control arm in, got the coilover in, got the RCA in. Now what I'm doing is clearancing the dust shield, and wouldn't you know, it's starting to rain. All right, so I'm going to blow through this. I'll come back and show you what all ended up having to do, and we're gonna wrap it up before I start getting rained on. Wrapping up. Now would be the time to upgrade to a stainless steel braided line, right? But if it's not in your budget, you couldn't find it, don't have the time, whatever, the OEM brake line from the GS300 is a direct bolt-on, or the OEM brake line from the LS400 is a direct bolt-on. But again, highly recommend that you take this time to upgrade to stainless steel braided lines. All right, moving on. This is a 10 millimeter. And for this one, I think that's a 14. We'll find out here in a second. But brake line specific wrenches, highly recommend that you get some. I have stripped more than a few of these, and it's a pain. So highly recommend that you use the right tool for the job. All right, let's go. So once you get the brake line or the nut bolt, whatever you want to call this, off, you're gonna pry this out with a flat head. Now, I understand that more than likely if you're watching this channel, you already know how to do this. However, shout out to Aiden Wellington, my nephew, who has decided that the GS300 is the car that he wants to have as his first car. So a lot of what I'm doing is to help him be able to work on his whole car. Now, it's proving to be difficult to do this with one hand and hold the camera, but and like I said, normally you would have this, you would have it suspended, and you want to have a drip pan to stop all of this brake fluid from leaking everywhere. Now, anyway, as I was saying, so a lot of this stuff I'm doing to show him, since we're not in the same state, exactly what he needs to do. He plans on lowering his car. He plans on, he has a lot of plans. I'm gonna insert a clip of what he wants his car to look like, and basically I'm showing him what all I did to get that car to look the way it did. Very, very simple, very, very cost effective upgrades, and a kid on a budget can do this by themselves. Okay, and I just did that with one hand. I am so proud of myself. But anyway, put the retaining clip back, thread the bolt in, and then start to tighten it back down. Again, highly recommend that you use a brake line specific wrench, because these things are easily stripped. And yes, you can fix it, but why go through all of that? You can just, as my mother would say, prevention is better than cure. All right, there might not be a wrong or right way to do this, but you're gonna slide the pin out and this is gonna come out, right? So now you're gonna put it back together in the inverse, right? Boom, press that down, push this through, and voila. Now you're going to take your retaining pin, which is this guy here, and it goes through the little holes in the pin. Got everything bolted up. Do a test to make sure nothing is grinding. It's not touching the dust shield at all. All right, we're not done yet. Got to clean the wheel up a little bit, but I want to point something out to you real quick. Look at that fitment. Stay tuned.